Hey, welcome to DennisTechTips. This is an introductory video to Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code, or VS Code, not to be mistaken for Visual Studio, is a powerful source code editor by Microsoft and is available for Windows, macOS, and Linux. It has built-in support for JavaScript, TypeScript, and Node.js, and has a rich ecosystem of extensions for other languages and runtimes like C++, Java, Python, PHP, and more. Visual Studio Code is also free and open source. To download Visual Studio Code on your PC, head over to Microsoft Store and search for Visual Studio Code. There you will see it in the search results. Click on the Get button to install. You can also download it from the official website code.visualstudiocode.com. The link is in the description of this video. When the site is open, right here you see these buttons that you can use to download Visual Studio Code on your PC. Click on the one that matches the operating system you are using, whether it's Windows, Linux, or Mac. Immediately you click on the download button, your download is going to kick off. When the download is done, click on the exe to begin the install process. After downloading and installing Visual Studio Code, when you launch it, you are going to see something like this. This is the welcome screen or get started screen. Right here you can create a new file, open an existing file, or open an existing folder. When you click on the file menu, you can also create a new file, open an existing file, or open an existing folder here. So I have a new folder on my desktop and I'm going to open it right here. Click on the open folder option and I get this dialog. Here I can choose the location where I have a folder. I have it on my desktop. Here it is. Select it and click on the select folder button. And I have my folder open in Visual Studio Code, but there are no files in it. I am going to have to create them. Up here I have these buttons. I can create a new file by hitting on the new file button. Next to that you can create a new folder with the new folder button. When I hit on the new file button, I get this field where I can input the new file name plus the extension of the type of file I want to create. For example, I want to create an HTML file, so I will say index, which is the file name, plus the extension for HTML files, .html, or CSS file, style plus the extension, .css, JavaScript file, script plus the extension, .js, Python, index plus the extension, .py. So up here I see all the files I've created, opened and lined up. I can rearrange them in any order I want. When I close all these files up here and I click on them one after the other, I can only open one at a time. I cannot open more than one at a time. But when I double click on every one of them, I can open them all at a time. I can split the editor by dragging the editor's files out. And now I can view two or more editors at the same time. Or you can simply head over to the View menu, Editor Layout. Here I can split the current file. I have the HTML file up here. I also have it down here with other files. I can close the one down here and still have this one to work with. You also have split down, split left, split right, and many other layouts. You can explore them to see how they work. Visual Studio Code comes with integrated tools for auto-completion to make writing codes very easy. For example, in this HTML file, when I type in HTML, before I even finish typing it, Emmet helps to auto-complete it. Visual Studio Code has something called IntelliSense. IntelliSense is a code completion tool. It allows code completion or text completion in different platforms. IntelliSense provides you with suggestions on how your code could be completed to avoid errors, just like this one. I am going to select one of these, let's say HTML5, that creates the skeletal structure of the HTML file. Right here when I type in div, it suggests the div element. And when I press enter, there I have my div element. When I hit on enter again and type H, here I get different heading suggestions and many other elements that start with H. When I select one of them, let's say H1, type in hello world. And there I have my first HTML file. To the left, we have our activity bar. Currently, we are in the Explorer where we have our files and projects. Next is the search, where you can search for specific elements and values in our projects. For example, if I search for H1, you see all the H1 highlighted. If I search for word, word is highlighted also. Right under the search, I have the replace field. You can search and replace value or elements with this. I have word. Here I can replace that with, let's say, Dennis, and hit on the replace button next to it, and then hit on replace. I can also replace an element, let's say H1. I am going to replace that with H2, hit on the replace button and then replace. And there it is. Next you have source control. Right here you can install and manage your projects with Git. We also have run and debug, which comes with debugging features. You can set breakpoints in your code to see where you are having issues. And lastly, we have extensions. Visual Studio Code is made to support JavaScript, TypeScript, HTML, and CSS. But with the help of extensions, you can work in Python, C++, PHP, and more. When you hit on this button down here, it opens this panel. Down here you have the problems ribbon, output ribbon, debug console, and terminal. You can change the look of Visual Studio Code by changing the theme. To do that, head over to the View menu and select Command Palette, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Shift-P. With Command Palette, you can access all the functionalities in Visual Studio Code. With the Command Palette open, when I search for color theme, here it is. Click on it. And down here you have different themes right here in Visual Studio Code. You can select any one you prefer. You can also change icons. For example, the file icons over here. Once again, head over to the Command Palette and search for Icon Theme and select Preferences Icon Themes. Down here when you select None, it disables the icons. There will be no icons. Minimal gives less unique or fancy icons. And then we have SETI, which is the default. When you select the last option, which is Install Additional File Icons, it will redirect you to the extensions activity. On the search, I see Tag Icon Theme. Select the Material Icon Theme, but if it doesn't pop up when the Tag Icon Theme is on the search, you can search for Material Icon Theme, and it will pop up. And then you can go ahead and hit on the Install button to install the extension. When the extension is done installing, you can click on the Set File Icon Theme button to set it as a new icon theme. Now when I head over to the Explorer activity, I see that the icons have changed and they look good. And when I go back to the icon theme, I see Material Icon Theme among the icons theme. You can also customize the appearance of Visual Studio Code to your preference within Settings. On the Command Palette, search for Settings and select Preferences, Open Settings. With the search bar, you can search for whatever it is you want to reset. For example, when you search for font, to change the font family, you will see all the fonts related results. Or zoom, you will see all the zoom related results. Down here, I have Editor Mask Wheel Zoom and Window Zoom Level. Down here, you can change the zoom. I have 1.3 here as the zoom. I can increase or reduce the value down here. You can enter values between 1 and 10 in here. By the way, the keyboard shortcuts to zoom in and out is Ctrl and Ctrl- respectively. Ctrl zooms in and Ctrl- zooms out. Down here you see there is a user tab and there is a workspace tab. Whatever changes you make in the user tab affects the entire app, that is Visual Studio Code in general. And whatever changes you make in workspace is limited to just the current file or folder. In other words, user is general settings, while workspace is for file settings. If I change the zoom value in workspace, while I'm in this tutorial file, and I open another file, the zoom will not affect the file because the settings I made is only limited to the previous file. But if I change the zoom value in user tab, while I'm in this tutorial file, when I open a new file or folder, the zoom will affect that file or folder because I did a general setting. So user, general, and workspace, file. I hope you get that. Visual Studio Code is built to support JavaScript, TypeScript, CSS, Node.js, and they all have integrated features that helps to write code more conveniently. What if you want to use other frameworks in Visual Studio Code? Now this is where extensions come in. Visual Studio Code has a large number of extensions that you can install to help facilitate your code writing experience with other languages. You can head over to the extensions activity. When you click on this filter icon, you can view the extensions by category. You have featured, most popular, recently published, recommended, and the rest. When I click most popular, you see the most used extensions here. You can install them if you need them. Now let's talk about shortcuts. There are lots of keyboard shortcuts that you can use in VS Code, but I'm not going to run through every one of them. That will take forever. If you want to learn them on your own, head over to the command palette and search for shortcuts. And then click on Preferences, Open Keyboard Shortcuts. And down here you have all the keyboard shortcuts available in Visual Studio Code and all the possible commands you can add shortcuts or key binding to, as it's labeled here. Within key binding column, you see all the shortcuts listed in their corresponding command rows. When you hover over the empty column on the left hand side of the screen, you see this pen. When you click on it, you can change the key binding or add a key binding if none was assigned before. So if there are any commands you want to know their shortcuts, you can come down here and look them up. When I hold down the Control key on my keyboard and press the letter P key, I can switch to any file within my project folder. As long as I hold down the Control key, when I press the P key, I can switch from one file to another. When I have the file I want to open selected and I let go of the Control key, the file will open immediately. I can also switch between multiple projects with Ctrl R, just the same way I use Ctrl P. Hold down the Ctrl key on my keyboard, and when you continue to press the arrow key, it will be switching from one project to another. So that is it, guys. That is a quick introduction to Visual Studio Code. If you find this video helpful, please give it a like and also support this channel by subscribing and turn on post notifications so you get notified when I post a new video. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.